o'clock and 10:59 in the morning. So why does the international date line look so ridiculous in the first place? Well, great question. Although these zigzags may seem completely arbitrary, they actually have a logical basis. It's pretty much a made-up concept based on the Earth's rotation. The Earth is always spinning, thank goodness, and it takes about 24 hours, or a day, to complete one full rotation. To keep things in sync, people took the Earth and divided it into 24 time zones, each 15 degrees apart. But what is the starting point for a day on Earth? Well, basically, people needed to figure out which of these 24 zones or lines would be the starting line, or the chronocenter. They needed a reference point, a line where they could begin adding or subtracting time as you move east or west. That line is what we now call the prime meridian. But here's the catch. Deciding where to put this starting line, the prime meridian, is totally arbitrary. The idea of establishing a line where days begin and end goes all the way back to at least the 1300s. Back then, map makers were doing their own thing, picking their own east-west dividing lines called meridians, which, by the way, is just a fancy Latin word for midday. Without a universal standard for when a day officially started or ended, sailors on long voyages just had to wing it, figuring out how to handle the time they were gaining or losing along the way. So, in 1884, people decided to organize this whole mess. 25 nations gathered at the prestigious International Meridian Conference in the United States with one big goal: to decide on the line that would serve as the official prime meridian. Finally, like it or not, they were determined to create the international date line that the whole world would accept and would follow from that point forward. The prime meridian was established in Greenwich, England, and the international date line was placed on the opposite side, running through the 180th meridian. Well, sounds simple, right? But that's when the nightmare really began. The chosen international date line didn't just wander through uninhabited areas. Oh no, it split some countries in half and created all sorts of chaos. I mean, if you divide the world with a completely straight vertical line, you end up with situations where half of a country is one day ahead and the other half is one day behind. Take Kiribati, for example. The country is primarily centered in the Gilbert Islands, which sits just west of the international date line. However, in 1979, their territory got a little bigger with the Phoenix and Line Islands, which are way east of the date line. Suddenly, Kiribati was straddling the international date line. This created a bit of a headache for businesses. Folks on either side could only communicate by radio or phone for 4 weekdays a week. Now, to fix this quirky situation, Kiribati decided to skip Saturday, December 31st, 1994, right off the calendar. So Friday, December 30th, turned into Sunday, January 1st, 1995. And just like that, New Year's Day came a day early. Woohoo! After that, the date line moved eastward to go around the entire country. So the same thing that happened to Kiribati happened to other countries as well. For example, when they got to the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, yep, the line made another detour to include them. And when they got south of the equator, well, guess what? Another eastward bend to cover even more islands. And that's pretty much why the straight line started to get a bit ziggy-zaggy. This wonky line is designed to avoid land as much as possible, so there's less hassle when it comes to changing days. So, no, you can't stand between the international date line, like having one foot in one day and the other in the next. But you can cross it by boat. In fact, some fancy trans-Pacific cruises even offer a time travel line is designed to avoid land as much as possible. You want to cross the line and jump when it comes to changing days. Now, in the end, the international date line you can't stand between the international because it was constructed based on one series of one day and the other in the next. Historical quirks, but you can cross it by boat. Of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-Pacific organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land as travelers who want to cross the line and jump in meridian established days. Now, in the end, the international date line you can't stand this particular international because it was constructed having one series of one day and the other in the next. Historical but you can cross it by boat. Confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-Pacific organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land as travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date line. You can't say this ridiculous because it was constructed navigating one series of arbitrary the other in the next. Historical quirks and a whole lot of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-people organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date line. You can't say this ridiculous because it was constructed navigating one series of arbitrary the other in the next. Historical quirks and a whole lot of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-people organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date line. You can't say this ridiculous because it was constructed navigating one series of arbitrary the other in the next. Historical quirks and a whole lot of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-people organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date line. You can't say this ridiculous because it was constructed navigating one series of arbitrary the other in the next. Historical quirks and a whole lot of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-people organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date line. You can't say this ridiculous because it was constructed navigating one series of arbitrary the other in the next. Historical quirks and a whole lot of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-people organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date line. You can't say this because it was constructed navigating one series of arbitrary the other in the next. And a whole lot of confusion. In fact, some fancy trans-people organizers in the 19th century that the long line is designed to avoid land travelers who want to cross the line and July meridian established is coordinated international date. You can't say this.